One, two, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Jacobs. Welcome to the Sales Hacker Podcast. Today we've got on the show Tom Williams. Tom is the co-founder of a company called DealPoint, the first sales platform for customer-centric sales teams. Really, what Tom has done and his partner and his co-founder, what they've done is they've created software around this concept of the mutual action plan. And the mutual action plan, if you don't know what it is, you should. If you're in enterprise sales, I would assume you are using something like this concept, but it's basically a shared agreement between the buyer and the seller on the set of milestones that need to happen in order to achieve success for the buyer. And I said it that way because you'll learn from Tom why the biggest mistake people make in mutual action plans is setting the milestone, the ultimate milestone, as the signed agreement. And that's not the ultimate milestone. That's not what gives success to the customer. So you can tell I really like this conversation and it's really powerful. Before we get into the show, we want to thank two sponsors. The first one is Chorus.ai. As companies adapt to the new normal, keeping your sales team moving together is more essential than ever. Chorus.ai is a conversation intelligence platform that provides key insights into the sales conversations your team is having every day. Record, share, review, and coach your team based on the voice of your customer. With Chorus.ai, get your reps to hit quota consistently, ramp your new hires faster, and replicate your unicorns through coaching initiatives, all while together or fully remote. Go to Chorus.ai/sales-hacker to try it for yourself. Our second sponsor is Outreach, the leading sales engagement platform. Outreach revolutionizes customer engagement by moving away from siloed conversations to a streamlined and customer-centric journey. Leveraging the next generation of artificial intelligence, the platform allows sales reps to deliver consistent, relevant, and responsible communication for each prospect every time, enabling personalization at scale that was previously impossible. Wasn't even possible. Now with Outreach, it's possible. So these things are good things. Let's listen to my interview with Tom Williams. Hey folks, it's Sam Jacobs. Welcome to the Sales Hacker Podcast. Today on the show, I'm excited to have Tom Williams. Tom is the co-founder of DealPoint, the first sales platform for customer-centric sales teams. He's going to tell us all about that. We're excited to have him on the show. Tom, I don't have a longer bio for you. What were you doing before DealPoint?
Hi, first of all, thanks very much for having me on.
Sure, absolutely. Welcome.
I spent the first part of my career as a marketer, and then about 8 years ago, the VP of sales said in a board meeting, "I don't know what the hell happened." And a week after that, I became the VP of sales and marketing. That was in
What company was it?
That was a place called Audio Precision. They did it's kind of cool. The best sine waves in the world. So it was audio test equipment. We sold to Apple and Samsung and everybody. So yeah,
Wow.
We literally made the world's highest fidelity sine waves. 0.0001% accuracy, which is very, very low noise. Anyway, I left there about 5 years ago, did a startup. It was a CRM. My advice, don't try to start a CRM. And then did a stint at a enterprise startup and then kicked off DealPoint about 4 years ago. It became a real paying deal about 2.5 years ago.
So we'll start your baseball card. You're the CEO of DealPoint. Tell us, What is DealPoint?
So DealPoint is a sales tool for buyers and sellers to get together and understand what needs to happen between today and the deal actually happening. So there's a mutual action plan, if you're familiar with that concept.
Very familiar.
Fundamentally, what it does is it gives the buyer the transparency and the trust that you as a seller know what you're doing. And it gives the sales manager the confidence that their sales team are following the process and that they are qualifying the customers properly, getting all the discovery questions in, and really anchoring their solution properly to that customer's need so that there's no surprises throughout the sales cycle and everybody ends up happy.
That sounds fantastic. And so is it an add-on to a typical CRM? Is it? Is that the nature of the software?
No, we integrate with Salesforce, of course, but fundamentally, it's a visual timeline of the deal, and it's an app that you share. It's online. It's a cloud-based thing that you share between the selling team and the buying team. So both halves of the stakeholders are in looking at this visual timeline and saying, "Okay, I understand that we have this milestone that's coming up in a couple of weeks. here are the outcomes that need to happen for us to accomplish that milestone. Who's going to do those? And it goes through those milestones based on the templates that are from your existing sales process. What we observed is that an awful lot of top sellers already do this stuff. They make sure that they understand what needs to happen between now and the customer's ultimate success. And they share that with the customer. But a lot of the middle of the pack reps don't do it. They rely on personal charm or rapport or just answering the phone. And they don't really get into the detail, which if you don't set those expectations with customers, then there's going to be heartache at the end of the deal. You put all this love into it and then find out there's some horrible deal breaker that you didn't ask about earlier. Top sellers already know that, so they make sure that all those details are taken care of and addressed. Middle of the pack guys are more likely just to cross their fingers and hope, which is why they're middle of the pack.
I love it. So I would imagine this is primarily, I don't know about primarily, but when I really implemented mutual action plans rigorously, it was when I was doing pretty large enterprise deals, because that was where all of these different milestones throughout the organization were, you had to ask the questions and figure out where they lay. Are you primarily focused on an enterprise client base, or is it, everybody can use this, and maybe even what you're doing is taking the concept of a mutual action plan and distilling it, making it easy to use so that any kind of company can use it?
Yeah, well, we're definitely bringing it down the totem pole a little bit, because it is a lot easier to use a mutual action plan when it's presented to you in a visual way. So we say our ICP is somebody who has a relatively complex sale. Anything less than $50,000 ACV, you are probably just doing it real quick and you're not putting a whole lot of love into closing that deal. When you hit the $40,000, $50,000 level, then you start to care a lot more about the individual deals, and you want to make sure that the steps are clear. So if you have multiple buyers in your sales cycle, people can remember about 2 months worth of stuff. So if it's multiple buyers, say 3 months and longer sales cycle and worth more than about 50 grand, then you should be using mutual action plans regardless of DealPoint. You should be spelling out the expectations between you and your customers. And really, the software makes it easier, but the fundamentals are the same. You've got to set that expectation with your customers, and they will trust you more, and you will close the deal faster or be able to DQ them faster. Either one's fine, because you end up with a reliable forecast.
Awesome. Tell us about the origin story of the business. What was the idea? Was it you being frustrated at different reps not implementing the sales process correctly? How did you come up with the concept?
Well,
and tell us about the last couple of years.
Sure. So when I was running sales and marketing at Audio Precision, I would, I'd have my regular deal reviews with my team, and I heard guaranteed close by the end of the month a lot. And then from time to time, I would pick up the phone and call the customer, because it's a relatively the audio test and measurement community is relatively small, so everyone knew who we were, Audio Precision, and I was able to just pick up the phone, and they'd say, "Yeah, it's interesting, but the project isn't launching until next year or whatever." And there was just this massive divide between what my reps were saying and what the customers were saying. So I kind of stuck that in my mind. We implemented Salesforce over there, and I withheld commissions until they had filled in Salesforce to my satisfaction. But it really was pulling teeth. And it would be like, is 60 words enough? How about 62 words? And it was a real fight. So I stuck that in my brain. And then I went to go work for a startup here in Portland, enterprise software startup. So completely different industry. It was MarTech, completely different everything, but the exact same problem. And I remember realizing, well, it's because my reps are not on the same page as our customers. And so if everybody was looking at the same plan, there wouldn't be this miscommunication and this, total cross purposes of priority. And so that's where it came from. Is like, if we can get the buying team to share what their priorities are and what their needs are, and put them on the same view as what I know our sales process needs are, then everybody's better off. So the original idea of DealPoint, we launched about 2.5 years ago. It was much more focused on the individual meeting. So there was video conferencing and file share and all that. Because I had thought that if you build this beautiful conference room virtually, then the reps will come in and they'll know what to do. What we heard real quick was actually what the reps want is a beautiful conference room with a really nice whiteboard and an agenda for the next 6 months written out real clear as to who needs to do what. And so I embarked on a big effort. I must have interviewed 50, 65 sales leaders about how they operationalized their sales process. And I learned, you wouldn't believe what I learned on the best practices and worst practices of that kind of communication. So about a year ago, I wrote an article actually for Sales Hacker on the best practices of mutual action plans. And it really took off. I got a lot of people asking about it. We rejiggered DealPoint to be less focused on the now and more on the what's happening over the next 5-6 months. And yeah, it's a lot easier to explain and differentiate when we say we're making tools for your buyers to understand where the hell they are. And you can stick with Salesforce, but for God's sake, this buyer has this massive problem. They've never bought your thing before. There's pressure like never before weighing down on them, and they have to make this big decision. Why don't we give those guys another tool instead of giving reps another tool? So that's what we do.
I love it. And I was reading through the notes that you provided. Y'all are profitable, and have you raised outside financing, or it's completely bootstrapped?
It's bootstrapped. We've been really fortunate. We have a very frugal team. We have 11 people. Portland nowhere near as expensive as the Bay, but you can get top talent here. So we have, I could not be happier with the team that we have. So kick-ass team, relatively low cost, and we have a couple of anchor clients who have made all this whole thing possible. So it's fantastic. We got money in the bank, and we'll probably go for funding, I don't know, I was going to say the end of this year. That's probably not going to happen. So on the other side of this U or V or whatever shape this thing is, when the markets open up again, we'll probably go out so we can expand more rapidly.
Yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned the best practices article that you posted on Sales Hacker.
Yeah.
What are the common mistakes people make when putting together a mutual action plan?
So easily the biggest mistake that I see that is also the easiest to fix is if you look down the list of milestones, the final milestone is signed contract. And it's terrible because it puts the buyer thinking, I'm just making this guy's boat payment. What you should do is the final milestone in your list of things is the buyer's return on investment, that benefit that you're all working towards, because it keeps everybody focused with the eye on the prize. Why are we doing this? So if things in the middle of a deal, you bring in the CEO, like, why am I looking at this? It's real easy. It's because we said we can give you a 75% return on your IoT efficiency or whatever that thing is by month 9. So now they're focused on that thing. And that really drives the urgency that we're not working towards my close date, my contract date. We're working towards their benefit. The secondary advantage to that is that now signing the contract is just, I know, step 5 of 7 rather than the last one. And so it's just a means to an end, and it becomes a lot smaller deal. It's just something that has to happen in order for them to realize their fantastic benefit. So think about the customer's benefit and posit everything towards that. Then the second mistake I see that's a little bit harder to do, but if you can get this right, then you are gold, is to really understand who the buying team is. And so for each of those milestones, make it part of your discovery to get a name to a milestone. So yes, I know we need to have a network analysis for this project. Who on your side would be doing that network analysis? And the cool thing is, when you present it as here's the milestone, here's what we need to happen in order for your success. We know we need a network analyst for this. Who would that be on your side? That feels a lot different than me saying, who's your network analyst? Because now it's in context of helping them. They are a lot more likely to share that information with you. So now you have contact to that network analyst. And if they refuse to tell you, or they say, I don't know who that guy is, then you can mark that particular opportunity down, because it's a lot less likely to be a successful deal if you can't get those people involved on the mutual action plan, because either the buyer is not as serious as they say they are, or they don't have the resources, or something's not right. But you know that at
Yeah.
least you can adjust your forecast.
Those are fantastic insights, and certainly I've experienced. I think the point that you made about the signing of the contract being the last step is brilliant. So, kudos. I think that's we got to just make it part of the process towards the solution that we're trying to deliver.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I love.
Well, I really remember when I was signing my mortgage papers for my house. Everyone was real happy in that room. They're all chit chatting and everyone's happy. I was like, why is that? I was like, oh yeah, because I'm paying everybody in this room. That's why they're chit chatting. And I was trying to read the goddamn 4,000 page contract. They were just chit chatting away. They're happy as could be. They were not focused on my success. They were focused on what were they going to do with their commission. And that didn't make me feel good. And I strongly suspect it doesn't make your customers feel good when you're doing the same thing.
A bit of an aside, but that's why there's the chief revenue officer title is a somewhat newer title, maybe over the last 10 or so years. I mean, maybe there were CROs before, but I've been in many meetings where I introduce myself as the chief revenue officer, exactly to your point, and it always feels a little discordant because. Just there, I'm the guy to collect the money, as opposed to customer officer. I'm here at your service, but the revenue component of it makes it feel like, why am I in the meeting? I'm not really here to serve you. I'm here to make sure that you pay us, which doesn't feel the same way. So anyway, that's just an observation.
So at DealPoint, I'm the CEO, but that's the chief eating officer because I buy lunch for a lot of the team a lot of the time. It was more when we were in the office, but I still pay for lunch a lot because it's a small thing that I can do, and I'll go get lunch because that makes them more productive, makes everybody happier. So yeah, I'm the chief eating officer, and then my business partner is the chief turning on officer because we have unbelievably complicated TVs in the office, each of which has a different on button, and he's mastered them all. So if you need the TV turned on, you talk to Mr. Young.
CTOO.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the things that we were talking and you were commenting about offline relate to the current situation. We're recording this on April 24th, and we're all working remotely, and to the point of buying lunch for people. Well, maybe you're getting them delivery or some kind of gift card. But what's your strategy for this transition? I mean, obviously, I'm curious if it's impacted your business. It may or may not have, but also how has it impacted your team, and what are the lessons, the strategies, the tactics that you're employing to manage the team remotely and to help people navigate this crisis?
Well, I think there's two really big sides to it. So on the management side, sales I think we're fortunate because I've certainly done my share of conference calls from hotel rooms. I'm not really that uncomfortable working from my home office or working from the road. I've done it. You've done it. Every salesperson ever has managed remotely. And so on the sales side, I feel pretty good. We're totally comfortable having video-based conference calls for our deal reviews and all that stuff. On the engineering side, it's become a little bit more challenging just because they're used to sitting next to each other and looking at each other's code. What we've actually done is a couple of them will pair up and they'll just leave Slack on all day long so that they can hear each other typing and they can just kind of quip to each other and talk, which gets rid of a lot of the loneliness that they were facing. So a couple of our guys...
They'll leave Slack on, or they'll leave Zoom on, or some video conferencing thing?
Well, Slack has video and audio built in. So,
cool.
Yeah, because we're in there all day long. They use Slack. I use Zoom. They use Slack.
But they use the video part of it so that they can just basically feel like they're sitting next to somebody.
Exactly, yeah, and they feel a bit more at home. But the part that really opened my eyes was I was less receptive to phone calls because I'm busy and I'm stressed out. And I suddenly had this realization that all of our buyers are feeling that stress because COVID aside, while we're at home, that is stressful in and of itself. Working from home is stressful if you're not used to it. And then we're headed into this massive great recession, which is also stressful. So we have these three different stress factors pushing down on our customers. So what we're doing is, as a sales motion, one, we are not COVID carpetbagging. I remember seeing the first, I think it was a Domino's ad, the first guys out of the gate with have a COVID pizza. So we're not doing that. But we are addressing the fact that our prospects are stressed out and they're paralyzed by fear. So we're saying to them, your relationships with your buyers are probably under pressure right now. The easiest thing to do to make everything be smoother is to have a plan. And it's not necessarily about DealPoint. It's just about, if you lay out what's happening and you look at what are the possible futures for my job or my company or my customer's job and my customer's company, and just think about it a little bit and kind of sketch out some paths to success, you will feel less paralyzed by fear. And you will see that there's a path forward, or there's not a path forward, one of the two. But by knowing it and by thinking about it in advance, you'll just be a lot better off. So I firmly believe that people who think are the ones who make it through any crisis. And if you have a plan and you share that plan, then you're a lot less likely to get paralyzed by doubt or fear or uncertainty, and you're more likely to be able to get ahead of the pack. So on the one hand, our customers, the irony is that our customers are feeling doubt and fear and paralyzation of, what do I do? Should I buy another tool? But on the positive hand, if they have tools to make plans and share plans and just look at the future ahead a little bit and work back from how do we want it to be, then they're more likely to be successful and their customers are more likely to be successful. So that's kind of what we're preaching now. My other big advice is, people are missing a lot of industry gossip, because I heard my gossip when I was getting a coffee, so that's gone. So if you know some juice, share the juice, because we miss it and we want to have that back.
That's fascinating. Or join a virtual community potentially that can provide.
Totally, yeah. There are some really, really nice communities out there. I'm not allowed in Revenue Collective, Sam. But
I want you to be in there, but it's a rule that my predecessor made.
I love it. I love that I'm not in there. I think it's appropriate. A lot of my friends are, and they have the talk about it has gone through the roof in terms of, here's what my peers are saying. I am a member of MSP, which is equally vibrant, I'll say. Yeah, it just helps to see what's going on out there at a peer level. I'm saying, though, you can help your buyers with that, and you're less likely to be in a virtual community with your buyers. You're more likely to be in a virtual community with your peers. So, but both of those social touch points are important.
Not yet. I was being a bit facetious, but yeah, you're exactly right. How is it, to the point of planning, has the crisis impacted your business? How have you responded from a business perspective as the CEO, albeit the chief eating officer? Have you adjusted your forecasts, or have you made different decisions? Has it impacted your operational strategy for 2020, or is it sort of business as usual?
It very much has. Yeah, I've told the team, don't worry about the quotas. The money, we're okay for money. Everyone's going to keep their jobs. We're okay for money. We have a couple of real strong anchors, as I said. In terms of new business, we just got to chill. We're working real hard. We're having plenty of conversations, but that, the pressing the trigger is going to take longer than normal. And I'm okay with that. And I want my team to know that I'm okay with that, because that's the reality. If I shout at them, it's not gonna make our prospects any more likely to make a decision. If I put my stress on my guys, and if my guys then put their stress on, please close the deal, I'll give you a 50% discount, that doesn't make anybody feel good. So we're in this real fortunate position where we've got money in the bank and we've got money coming in. So I would say, as a leader, take the stress and keep it on your shoulders. Don't let it slide downhill. And this has never happened before. So just got to chill a little bit and don't panic, and don't let your people panic. And certainly don't let them put their stress onto your customers, because that's going to wreck the relationship forever.
Yeah, I agree with that. And to the point, you've built a business that can weather the storm because it is self-funded and profitable with anchor customers. So you haven't put yourself into a position where you've raised $20 million at a $60 million pre-money valuation on, whatever your ARR is. And now basically you're looking at being, at least having the equity value, essentially wiped out, because there's just not going to be able to grow into that valuation before you run out of money.
Yeah. I don't like the blitzkrieg philosophy of growth of growth before profit. I mean, I want to grow fast. We have grown fast, but I don't believe in growing ridiculously fast, because I think you're going to end up having an unhealthy foundation. And I think that because I've seen it a lot, where they grow real fast or they throw their software together real fast, and then it creaks under pressure and ends up crumbling. And it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help your customers or your employees or your investors if you build something on a bunch of sand. So yes, build fast, but build strong. And maybe it's because my granddad was a bricklayer that I understand you can't fake a foundation. You've got to do the work. And you can't use an inflatable foundation.
Yeah, I agree with you. Sometimes I think to the point, it's what is too fast. And it's sort of like, I think the natural rate of growth, if you have a good product, is almost the rate of your inbound leads. That's the market telling you that they want the product, assuming that they are telling each other that they like the product. Mm-hmm. And so, I tend to agree. Obviously, there are success stories of companies that have taken venture capital and blown it out of the water, but you can grow at venture rates if you have a great product based mm-hmm. on the market receptive to your product. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah, and I think venture has a real role in faster acceleration, because if I want to remain profitable, I can't hire too many salespeople. There's more business than I can hire ahead of, because a rep's not going to cover themselves in the first 6 months. So there's overlay that I have to do, and some reps aren't going to work out and all that stuff. So there's definitely a role for big money, but not before the fundamentals are in place. And I had this analogy I heard of, so you got the car, right now we're building the engine, but there's two parts. One is put more gas in the engine to make it go faster, and two is make sure it's heading in the right direction. So you have to have a strong engine block that can accommodate more gasoline, and you got to make sure that the car's pointing in the right direction. I think often we forget to do both of those fundamentals.
I agree with you. One of the last topics I wanted to cover, and it is particularly important now, just in terms of outreach and how people are reaching out to folks, and the quality of the personalized automation that you're experiencing. So you have a point of view on this. Give us your point of view for just about, you just mentioned automated touches to a complete stranger is bullshit. Talk to us about that perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I know you get 1,000 of them a day. The ones that are particularly egregious are, so on LinkedIn, our company name is DealPoint.io, because Merrill Lynch has an old deal room product called DealPoint. So I can't be DealPoint on LinkedIn. And so but you would never say, hey, I hear you work for DealPoint.io. So it's obvious that they just pulled that into Zoom Info and then dropped it into Outreach and fired it out. And you can smell it from a mile away. I'm really interested in what you're doing, or wow, your accomplishments are so incredible. And it's such a wrong way to begin a trust-based relationship, to lie to you, and the first sentence is a lie. And I use that. So I used to write back and I'd say, you're a robot. And, just don't do that as a peer-to-peer. That's not the way to establish a relationship. But I've stopped doing that because I got burnt out on it. So what we do is...
You'll be fighting that fight for a very long time.
Yeah. You still need to do things at scale, though, because especially there's we're a small team. So what we do is SDRs will read we have an ICP. So we filter by the ICP, but then we look at the profiles on LinkedIn and find something that shows that they would have interest. So they're talking about process or predictable forecast, or something that would give us any inkling that they care about this stuff. Because there's plenty of organizations out there that have zero sales process, and realistically, I'm not going to be able to sell them a operationalized mutual action plan platform if they don't have a sales process. So we can drill in pretty quick. And then it's so much easier too for an SDR to say, I read your article on more consistent discovery. Here's why we want to talk. Then I was really interested in you, or I stumbled across you on LinkedIn. That's just and I listen to the phone calls, and they're cringing if there's no hook to hang your hat on. If there is a hook, then the conversation is so much smoother because you have a legitimate reason to call, a legitimate reason to reach out. So, that's what I think. And you can certainly automate later parts of the process. I think the best role of automation is reminding the salespeople to follow up, not to say, "Hey, I'm just following up," but what I'll do is I'll have a great conversation with somebody, and then I've got a million lunches to buy. So I've got a lot of things to do, and I will forget to stay on it. Now, as the seller, it's your responsibility to make things happen. So my favorite use of outreach as a tool is to set myself tasks at certain increments to make sure that we're sticking with the plans that we said. And that's on the prospecting part. And then that's the cool thing about DealPoint is once you're into the deal, those dates are sitting there staring at you at the face, so you know what to do and you don't drop the ball. I think that's the role of automation.
Do you find that using my experience with mutual action plans is sometimes that you get the buyer to agree to this process with these milestones and these people accountable, and they still just ignore it. Do you find that using a tool like DealPoint actually helps with compliance of adherence to the milestones?
Yeah, I think it's for two reasons. It gamifies it a little bit because the actual UI is attractive. It looks good, and you get these little green buttons when you've accomplished the outcomes, or there are big red ones when it's not accomplished. And the whole thing says, you're going to blow this value prop if you guys don't catch up to where you're supposed to be. So it's very, very visceral. That's one thing. I think knowing that the larger buying team is looking at this makes it easier to hold the people accountable who agreed to do the thing. And then the third thing is focusing on that buyer outcome, that buyer ROI. The reason you're following up is not to say, I'm just following up. You're saying, if we want to hit your goal that you told me about, you are blowing it because milestone 2 is critical to this whole thing going according to plan. And you're going to be sitting there in your board meeting without a solution to the problem you were told to fix, unless you get your button gear. Now, you can probably say it more politely, but that's a frank, hard conversation that makes the difference between a successful sale and a ghosted sale. And you can do it when you have the tools there. And it's a little bit more fun because you get to click the button rather than open an email with a super, super dry spreadsheet or Word doc with a bunch of words written in it.
I agree with you. Tom, we're at the coming to the end of our time together, and what we like to do here, as you may know, is think about or hear about some of your influences, some of the people that have influenced you, the content that's influenced you. So, books you've read or thought leaders that you love. Who are some of the folks that have made a big impact on you that you'd want us to know about?
So one of my very favorite books is The Transparency Sale by Todd Caponi. I love it for two reasons. First of all, it's well written and it doesn't have a whole bunch of dumb anecdotes in it with fake names. It has real, actual sales examples where Todd has gone in and been extremely transparent and said, here are our strengths, here are our weaknesses, here's what we need from you in order for us to help you. I just love that whole philosophy of life is just be open and upfront about what you need and what you can do for other people. It just makes everything so much easier. And even in things like salary negotiations, when I'm hiring somebody, I'll just tell them up front, like, this is our salary ranges for you. I'm probably not going to give you the top of the range right now, but this is what the top of the range is. So Todd Caponi is a fantastic read. And then in terms of sales philosophy, I really like the Force Management Command of the Message because it is, I think, a more modern take on make sure that you have a commitment and that you're working towards that customer and working backwards from there. So yeah, those are my two biggies.
I love Todd Caponi. He's been on the podcast. He's fantastic.
Yeah. He's cool. He even had a cup of coffee with me once in Portland. I felt so nervous because he's like my hero and he had coffee with me.
He's highly approachable.
Yeah.
If you live in Chicago, you'll see him every other day. My last question before I ask for your contact information. So you said your favorite song. We have a question, listeners, on our little one sheet that people fill out, their favorite music. And Tom, your favorite music this is a band, Osric Tentacles.
Yeah, they're a space rock band from the English festival scene. So
okay, they're like a jam band.
Yeah, but with a lot more marijuana than you would have expected, like a lot more.
I
So
expect a lot of marijuana from a jam band.
yeah, yeah. There's no singing, a lot of really weird signatures, kick-ass drumming, fantastic guitar playing, awesome noises, and just
Okay.
very, very positive music that will get you going in a heartbeat.
I'm gonna put it on. I'll put it on my Sonos as soon as we get off.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Strangitude is their best album, so it just kicks in and just owns you from the first minute.
All right, cool. And no vocals. It's kind of like, all right, I'm
Yeah, you can
excited.
work to
So
it. Yeah.
good. I look forward to it. Tom, it's been a great conversation. We're gonna pick it up on Friday with Friday Fundamentals. But if folks want to reach out to you, what's your favorite contact information? I'm sure somebody out there needs a mutual action plan platform. So
Fantastic. So it's DealPoint.io, Tom at DealPoint.io. If you go on LinkedIn, look for DealPoint because there are literally 7,000 Tom Williamses who do sales and marketing. So you're unlikely to find me. So look for DealPoint in all your favorite stores, or you can actually, if you search for mutual action plan, then my article for Sales Hacker is the first result. You can read all about mutual action plans, and then at the bottom of that is a free template for how to do a mutual action plan with a Google sheet. So you can kind of get into it and think about it. This is horrible, but you don't need software to do this stuff. Software just makes it slightly easier. So do a simple mutual action plan in a Word doc or a spreadsheet. You will see the difference with your customers when you explain, here's what's going to happen over the next 4 months. They will trust you more. Do that for a couple of months and then call me because you're going to want to have your entire team do a consistent job. And that's where the software kicks in. And
it's you prefer people reach you on LinkedIn, Tom, but search dealpoint.io.
Yeah. Or go to the website. Our website, of course, is an equally satisfactory way to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Tom, thanks for being on the show. We'll talk to you on Friday fundamentals, but it's been great having you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is Sam's Corner. How are you? I hope you're doing okay. I really enjoyed that conversation with Tom Williams. First of all, again, I think I mentioned this at the intro, but just a critical, easy insight. The ultimate milestone, the endpoint for you and your customer should not be the signed contract. That's your endpoint. That's not their endpoint. Their endpoint is the time when they finally start experiencing the benefits of purchasing your solution. And that could be many months after they've signed the contract. So one of the key insights that I got out of that conversation with Tom is just that make signing the agreement part of the overall process, but not the ultimate end goal of the process. And you automatically reorient yourself towards the buyer's perspective. So I thought that was great. I obviously am a huge fan of profitable businesses, and just listening to Tom and how they're growing the business thoughtfully, but still trying to grow it quickly is a good lesson because, the reality is venture capital isn't for every company. It's not for everyone. And institutional capital is not necessarily for everyone. What some people don't understand or realize is I don't care whether they're a controlling investor or not. I don't care whether they own the majority of the company. And I appreciate that there are the Mark Zuckerbergs out there with super voting shares and, this concept that they can never lose control of the company. But most people, most of the time, especially if you're young and inexperienced, you have to understand when you take on investment, you're hiring a boss. One way or the other, you are. And I talked to a founder one time, and she said, we're not hiring a boss. They don't have control of the company. I said, you don't understand. They are your boss. Things will happen. They have things in the covenants. They have the ability to exert influence. That means that you are no longer making autonomous decisions. Frankly, sometimes that might be a good thing, but just always understand. So when somebody's building a profitable business, I just love to hear it. And I think it's exciting. Now, before we wrap up the episode, we want to thank our sponsors, of course. The first is Chorus.ai, the leading conversation intelligence platform. Go to chorus.ai/sales-hacker to try out the leading conversation intelligence platform. And our second sponsor is Outreach, the #1 sales engagement platform. If you want to reach out to me, you can. I think you know how to do it. But if you don't, linkedin.com/in/Sam F. Jacobs. I hope wherever you are and whenever you are hearing this, you are safe, sound, happy, healthy, and as are your loved ones. I'll talk to you next time.